The twin sons of Aurelian bathed the royal city in gold. Tall towers of silver crystal reached toward the sky, shining above gardens filled with glowing trees. Every corner of the city showed the strength and beauty of the Vairali Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful in the galaxy. Inside the grand hall, nobles gathered in rows, their robes glittering like starlight. They whispered in soft tones, their delicate faces calm and proud. The Vairali were tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered faintly in the light. To them, everything about their world was perfect, pure, elegant, and far above the reach of other species. At the far end of the hall sat Emperor Kael'tor, ruler of the Vairali Empire. His golden eyes looked down from his throne, strong and wise. Beside him stood his daughter, Princess Lysara, known throughout the Empire for her intelligence and beauty. Yet today her calm expression showed worry. The Emperor was waiting for a special guest. Not a noble, not a prince, a human. For years, the Vairali Empire had ignored the growing power of humanity. The humans were once a scattered race from a small blue planet called Earth. But in just a few centuries, they had built colonies across the stars, forming a united force, the Terran Union. They were known to be clever, unpredictable, and brave. The Council of Aurelian had long said humans were wild and uncivilized, but now, humans controlled trade routes, shipyards, and planets that the Vairali once ruled. Tension had grown between the two powers. To prevent war, the Emperor invited the Terran Union to send a representative. The Vairali nobles expected someone soft, someone who would bow easily to their grandeur. But when the heavy doors opened, silence filled the hall. A man walked in, wearing a dark uniform of the Terran fleet. His steps were steady and quiet. His face was sharp, his eyes cold like steel. He had no crown, no armor, no servants, yet his presence felt heavier than the air itself. The guards moved aside instinctively. The nobles whispered among themselves, "Is that really a human? He looks so ordinary. No, look at his eyes. They are dangerous." The man stopped at the base of the stairs. He did not kneel. He only bowed his head once, respectfully but firmly. "Your Majesty," he said in a calm, deep voice, "I am Commander Elias Ward, representative of the Terran Union. I come in peace." The Emperor's lips curved into a faint smile. "You carry yourself boldly for one who stands before a throne of 1,000 years." Elias looked up. "Respect is not the same as fear, Your Majesty. I offer the first but not the second." The hall grew cold. No one had ever spoken to the Emperor like that. Even the guards tensed, but Emperor Kael'tor laughed softly. "Interesting. Humans always surprise me." Princess Lysara studied the man from beside the throne. Something about him unsettled her. His movements were too calm, his gaze too strong. She had met hundreds of alien diplomats, but none like him. Most bowed quickly, afraid to meet her father's eyes. This one looked straight at the Emperor as if he were an equal. When their eyes met, Lysara felt her heart tighten. There was no hostility in his face, just confidence, quiet and certain. And for some reason she couldn't explain, it made her afraid. Later that day, the court gathered for a small welcoming feast. Dishes of floating crystals and glowing fruits filled the tables. The Emperor spoke proudly about unity and peace. The human listened quietly, only speaking when needed. Every word he spoke was measured, simple, and true. He did not flatter the Emperor or boast about his people. He only spoke facts. When the conversation turned to the differences between their species, one noble laughed and said, "Humans come from a death world, do they not? A place full of storms and beasts? I wonder how any of them survived." Elias smiled slightly. "You wonder, but we did survive." "That is the difference." The nobles fell silent. The calm in his voice was not pride, it was truth. Lysara watched him closely. The more she saw, the more uneasy she felt. Humans were supposed to be weak compared to the Vairali, yet this one seemed unbreakable. When the dinner ended, she followed her father to his private chambers. "Father," she said softly, "I must speak." The Emperor removed his heavy cloak and turned to her. "What troubles you, my daughter?" "That human," she whispered. "There is something in his eyes. Something dangerous. I do not trust him." The Emperor chuckled. "You fear him?" She looked down. "Yes, I do not know why. He is calm, polite, and peaceful, but I feel something deeper, like a storm that sleeps beneath the surface." The Emperor placed a hand on her shoulder. Lysera, do you know why I invited him here? Because fear is a teacher, and if this human makes you feel fear, perhaps it is because he holds something our kind has forgotten. What could humans have that we lack? She asked. Fire, he said simply. A will that refuses to bow, even to the stars. The next morning, the Emperor held a private meeting with Elias in the council chamber. Lysera was allowed to attend as translator and observer. She stood quietly as the Emperor and the human discussed trade routes, military borders, and diplomatic codes. The Emperor spoke in long, poetic sentences. Elias answered in short, clear words. At one point, the Emperor asked, "Why do your people expand so fast, Commander? Do you not fear that one day the stars themselves will push back?" Elias replied, "We fear many things, Your Majesty, but fear never stopped us. It only taught us how to keep moving." The Emperor smiled slightly. "That sounds almost like wisdom." "It's survival," Elias said simply. When the meeting ended, the Emperor dismissed the others but asked Lysera to stay behind. "Walk with him, my daughter," he said. "Learn about his kind." Lysera wanted to refuse, but she could not. It was a royal command, so she walked beside Elias through the palace gardens, their footsteps echoing on the marble path. "Your people are very proud," Elias said, looking around. "It shows in every stone." "It is pride in history," she replied. "Our empire has lasted for thousands of years." He nodded slowly. "Impressive. Humanity has no such long story. We are still writing ours." Lysera looked at him curiously. "Why are humans so driven? Why do you always push forward?" Elias paused near a glowing tree. "Because if we stop, we die. On our home world, everything tried to kill us, storms, cold, hunger, even our own mistakes. So we learned to fight, to adapt, to endure. We learned that no one is coming to save us. Only we can save ourselves." His words carried no threat, only truth. Lysera felt the fear again, but this time it was mixed with something else. Respect. She realized humans did not live long like the Vairali. They did not have perfect worlds, but maybe that was what made them strong. As they reached the edge of the garden, she said quietly, "You are not what I expected, Commander." He smiled faintly. "Few ever think we are." When she returned to the palace later, her father was waiting. "Well?" he asked. She took a deep breath. "Not him, father. I fear that human." The Emperor raised an eyebrow. "Then he is the one I must understand." Outside, night fell over the shining city. Stars filled the sky, cold, bright, endless. And somewhere among them, the destiny of two species began to change. Morning light spilled into the marble halls of the Aurelian palace. Servants moved silently between pillars of gold and glass, carrying scrolls and crystal tablets. In the grand chamber, the leaders of the Vairali Empire gathered for the second round of talks with the Terran Union. The hall was filled with tension. Many nobles disliked the idea of sharing a table with a human. They saw humans as reckless wanderers of space, strong, yes, but unrefined. To them, the Empire's throne room was no place for a race born from chaos. But Commander Elias Ward stood calmly at the center of it all. He wore no armor, no crown, only the dark blue uniform of his fleet. Yet he looked as if the weight of the entire galaxy rested lightly on his shoulders. Princess Lysera entered quietly and took her seat beside her father, Emperor Kael'tor. She felt uneasy again. The human was silent, yet his presence filled the room more than the music or the voices around him. The Emperor raised his hand. "We begin the council. Commander Ward, your people seek trade access through our outer colonies. What can the Terran Union offer in return?" Elias met the Emperor's gaze without flinching. "Stability," he said simply. "Trade, defense, and knowledge. We wish to share routes and protect them together." One of the nobles, Lord Vekar, stood abruptly. His tall frame gleamed with jewels. "Share?" he said sharply. "You speak as if you are our equal. The Vairali Empire has ruled these stars for 1,000 years. What can your young species teach us?" Elias turned to him slowly. "Perhaps nothing," he said calmly. "Or perhaps everything you have forgotten." Gasps filled the chamber. The noble's face turned cold. "You dare insult the Empire?" "I only speak truth," Elias replied. "We humans learned through pain. Every scar on our world taught us something. We lost cities, species, oceans, yet we never stopped. If we are young, it only means we still remember how to fight for tomorrow." The Emperor leaned back, studying the human with silent curiosity. Lysera could not look away. Elias's words carried no arrogance, yet they felt heavier than iron. His voice was calm, but each sentence struck like a blade of reason. The Emperor finally spoke. "You speak boldly, Commander. Some would call it foolish." Elias smiled faintly. "Some might. But I do not know how to bow to lies, even beautiful ones." The nobles murmured in shock. But the Emperor only chuckled. Perhaps truth does not need beauty. Later that day, the Emperor called for a private break. The other nobles left, whispering among themselves, clearly angered. Only Lysera remained with her father. Elias stood near the tall window, looking out at the twin suns burning over the shining city. "You angered them," the Emperor said. "I know," Elias replied. "But peace built on flattery never lasts." Kale Tor nodded thoughtfully. "You remind me of the stories of ancient warriors, men who stood before kings and spoke without fear. Maybe because we had no kings," Elias said with a small smile. "We only had survivors." Lysera listened quietly. Something about the human made her heart uneasy. His words were sharp but honest. His confidence was not pride. It was something deeper, something earned. When the meeting ended, the Emperor turned to his daughter. "Walk with our guest, Lysera. Show him our archives. Perhaps he will understand us better through our past." Lysera hesitated. "Father, must I?" "It is an order," Kaltor said gently, so she obeyed. The two walked through the long corridors of the Imperial Archive. Walls of glowing crystal held thousands of years of Vayrali history. Paintings of kings, explorers, and heroes filled the air with faint light. Lysera tried to keep her tone polite. "These are the records of our empire," she said. "They tell of how we united the scattered worlds, ended wars, and brought peace to the stars." Elias studied the glowing murals. "It's beautiful," he said. "But peace built by one hand can be broken by another. Do your people still remember how to fight if peace is ever lost?" Lysera frowned slightly. "We do not seek war. We have grown beyond it." "Perhaps," Elias said softly. "But the stars have not." They walked in silence for a moment. Lysera looked at the human beside her. His eyes held a strange calm, but she could sense storms behind them. Finally she asked, "Tell me, Commander, why do humans fight so much?" "Every record we have of your kind is full of conflict." He stopped beside a sculpture of an ancient Vayrali queen. "Because life on Earth demanded it," he said. "Our world was harsh. The storms were violent. The cold was endless. Even the ground tried to kill us. We fought because we had to. And when there was nothing left to fight but ourselves, we learned to fight for something better. Each other." Lysera watched him carefully. "You make it sound noble." He shook his head. "It isn't noble. It's survival. We bleed, we fail, we fall, but we rise again. That is what it means to be human." His words hung in the air like a quiet storm. For the first time, Lysera understood what frightened her. It was not his strength or his defiance, it was the unshakable will behind his calm. Humans were not powerful because of their weapons or ships. They were powerful because they refused to give up. That night, the Emperor held a smaller council meeting. This time, only his closest advisors were present. The discussion turned toward trust. Could humanity truly be trusted with access to Vayrali trade routes? Lord Vakar spoke again. "Your Majesty, these humans are dangerous. They smile while they plan. Look at their eyes. Predators, every one of them." Elias stood silent beside the guards, his face unreadable. The Emperor replied, "Perhaps, but predators survive. That is why they still stand." When the council ended, Lysera followed Elias into the outer gardens. The twin moons hung high above the water pools. The night air was cool, filled with the gentle hum of insects. "Your people doubt you," she said softly. Elias nodded. "They should. Doubt is safer than blind faith. Do you not feel insulted?" He looked at her with calm eyes. "No, I don't seek to be liked, Princess. I seek understanding. Peace is not built in comfort, it's built in tension. If they fear us, then maybe they'll listen before they strike." Lysera was silent for a while. Then she asked, "You spoke boldly today. Do all humans speak to emperors like that?" He smiled faintly. "No, most never meet one. But my people don't believe in gods or kings. We believe in standing our ground no matter who stands before us." She tilted her head slightly. "Even before me?" "Especially before you," he said, his tone kind but firm. She felt a strange warmth rise in her chest, half annoyance, half admiration. No alien had ever spoken to her that way before. No one dared. As they walked back toward the palace, a sudden tremor shook the ground. The guards rushed past them, their faces pale. From the sky, a red alarm light flashed across the city. "What is that?" Elias asked. Lysara's communicator lit up. A guard's voice came through, urgent and shaky. "Your Highness, a border fleet was attacked. Unknown ships, possibly raiders. The Emperor requests all council members to prepare." Elias's eyes narrowed. "Raiders here?" She nodded quickly. "It must be pirates. But they have never dared come this close before." He stepped forward, voice calm but sharp. "Then they are testing your defenses. They will come again." Lysara turned to him. "How do you know?" "Because that's what we would do," he said. "Humans study patterns of threat. This isn't random, it's a message." She stared at him, realizing the truth in his words. He was not just a diplomat. He was a soldier who had seen real war, who had lived through danger that her people could only imagine. Later that night, from her balcony, Lysara looked out at the stars. The city below glowed peacefully again, but her heart was restless. She thought about his words, his steady gaze, his refusal to kneel. For the first time in her life, she wondered if the empire she loved was as strong as she believed. Somewhere far away, the human fleet waited among the stars, silent, patient, and ready. And though Lysara still feared the human, she began to fear something else even more. What if he was right? The twin suns rose over the shining city of Aurelion, casting long shadows through the palace windows. But peace did not come with the light. Tension grew in every hall, every whisper. Rumors spread after the border attack. The Virali nobles said it was the humans' fault, that Commander Elias Ward had planned it to weaken the Empire's defenses. Others said the raiders were human mercenaries sent to test Virali strength. Princess Lysara knew it was not true. She had seen Elias's calm honesty, but the court needed a target for their fear, and the human was the easiest choice. In the council hall, the Emperor listened as his advisors argued. "Your Majesty," said Lord Vakar, pounding his fist on the table, "we cannot trust this Terran commander. His words are poison. His people are preparing for war." Another noble agreed. "They hide behind peace talks while their fleets gather." "The attack is proof." The Emperor raised a hand, silencing them. "Enough. We will not act on fear." Lord Vakar stepped forward. "Then test him, my Emperor. Let us see what this human is truly made of. A duel, perhaps, a trial of skill and strength. If he wins, we trust him. If he loses, we know the truth." The chamber filled with murmurs. A test of honor, a fair trial. None could object. The Emperor turned his golden eyes toward Elias, who stood quietly among the guards. "What say you, Commander Ward? Will you accept such a test?" Elias looked up slowly. His expression was unreadable. "If my honor can buy peace, I will face any test." Lysara's heart tightened. "Father, this is madness," she said. "He came for peace, not war." The Emperor looked at her calmly. "Peace is not built on words alone, my daughter. Sometimes strength must speak for truth." 3 days later, the Arena of Stars was filled with thousands of Virali citizens. The sky dome above shimmered with energy shields. Floating banners of light showed the face of the human challenger and his opponent, General Theros, the strongest warrior in the Empire. Theros was a giant, even among the Virali. His armor was thick silver, his eyes glowing blue. He carried a plasma spear taller than himself. Elias entered the arena wearing no armor. Only the same dark uniform and a light exosuit beneath, designed for movement rather than protection. He carried a simple combat staff, human-made, with no energy core or plasma field. The crowd laughed when they saw him. "He has no chance," one shouted. "He will fall before the first strike." From the royal balcony, Lysara watched, her hands gripping the railing. Her heart pounded in fear. The human looked so small in the vast arena, yet his calm never wavered. Her father, Emperor Kael Tor, stood beside her. "Watch closely, my daughter," he said. "Today we will see what kind of fire humans truly hold." The match began with a deep gong sound. Theros charged forward, the ground shaking beneath his heavy steps. His spear slashed through the air with blinding light. Elias dodged just in time, rolling aside. The plasma tip burned a line across the arena floor. Gasps filled the stands. Elias moved differently from any fighter they had seen. He did not meet power with power. He used speed, precision, and timing. Every time Theros struck, Elias slipped past, letting the giant's strength become his weakness. "Face me, human," Theros roared, swinging again. Elias blocked the strike with his staff, sparks flying, and pushed back just enough to unbalance the warrior. His movements were clean and focused. He wasted no motion. The Virali crowd grew silent as the duel continued. What had begun as a show of dominance was turning into a lesson in control. Lysera watched in awe. She had feared this human for his strange presence, but now she saw something else. Discipline, not rage. Theros, frustrated, struck with all his power. The plasma spear slammed into the ground, sending a shockwave through the arena. Elias jumped, flipped through the air, and landed behind the general. In one smooth motion, he spun his staff and swept Theros' legs from under him. The mighty general fell to the ground. His weapon clattered away. Elias stepped forward, holding his staff pointed at Theros' chest. The crowd held its breath. Then Elias did something none expected. He dropped his weapon and extended his hand. "Stand," he said quietly. "The fight is over." Theros stared up at him, stunned. Slowly, he took the offered hand. The arena erupted in cheers and disbelief. Even the Emperor stood. His golden eyes were wide, but his lips curved into a faint smile. Lysera felt tears she couldn't explain rise in her eyes. The human had won, but without hatred, without pride. When the duel ended, the Emperor summoned Elias to the throne room. The nobles gathered once more, their faces uneasy. "You have shown great skill," the Emperor said. "You could have killed my general. Yet you chose mercy. Why?" Elias bowed slightly. "Because killing him would prove nothing, Your Majesty. Victory means little if it only creates more fear." The Emperor studied him silently. Then he said, "You have earned our respect, Commander. You have also earned many enemies." Elias nodded once. "I expected as much." Lord Vekar stepped forward angrily. "This proves nothing." He used tricks, human deception. But the Emperor raised his hand. "Enough. I saw truth with my own eyes." He looked back at Elias. "Tell me, human, what drives your kind to be so relentless? Even when you stand alone before giants, you do not bow." Elias's answer was simple. "Because we come from a world that never bowed to us. We learned early that survival means never giving up, no matter how small you are." Silence filled the hall. Lysera watched her father's face soften. She knew what he was thinking. The Virali had long lived in comfort, shielded from hardship. But this human, he came from a world that forged its people in struggle. The Emperor finally said, "Then perhaps humanity is not a threat to us, but a mirror. You show us what we once were, and what we may need to be again." Later that night, Lysera found Elias in the garden. He was sitting by the crystal pond, staring at the stars. "You risked your life today," she said quietly. "Why?" He looked up, his face calm. "Because peace is worth risk. Fear divides us, Princess. Someone had to stand in its way." She sat beside him, the air cool and quiet. "When I first saw you, I feared you," she admitted. "You were so different, but now I see something else," he smiled faintly. "Fear isn't always bad. Sometimes it means you've met something worth understanding." They sat in silence for a while. The night was peaceful, but both knew danger still lingered. Many in the court would not forgive the human's victory. Far above, among the stars, ships moved quietly, unmarked and unseen. Unknown forces were watching, and though the crowd had cheered that day, some powerful voices whispered in the dark, "The human must not live." The Virali palace shimmered under the light of the twin moons, but inside, shadows moved differently. Fear, anger, and ambition flowed like invisible currents through the halls. Some nobles could not forgive Commander Elias Ward for defeating General Theros and surviving the duel with mercy. Among them, Lord Vekar and a small faction whispered and schemed. "The human cannot be trusted," Vekar hissed. "He walks freely among us, but one day he will take more than honor. He will take control." His allies nodded, eyes cold and calculating. "We cannot strike openly." "The Emperor respects him," one said. "But a secret plan? That could work." Vekar smiled thinly. "Then it is decided. Tonight the human will be removed." Princess Lysera had sensed tension all day. She wandered the palace corridors, restless. The duel's memory still burned in her mind, the calm, precise human who had won without killing. The quiet strength that terrified and awed her at once. She did not know it yet, but Vekar's plot had already begun. Guards loyal to the conspirators moved quietly through hidden passages, preparing to strike. That night, the palace was quieter than usual. Only the hum of floating lights and the soft clink of crystal floors broke the silence. Elias walked alone in the gardens, his gaze on the stars. He sensed something, danger sharp and sudden like a pulse in the air. He stopped and scanned the shadows. Years of experience had taught him to trust instincts, a whisper of movement. He turned quickly, staff in hand, just as a group of masked figures leaped from the trees. "Princess Lysara," one shouted. The figure's voice trembled. "Hide!" Elias moved without hesitation. With fluid precision, he disarmed the first two attackers, using their momentum to throw them to the ground. The remaining ones hesitated, surprised by his speed and calm. From the corner of his eye, he saw Lysara stepping into the open. Her eyes widened with fear. "Go!" he shouted. "Now!" She froze for a moment, then ran behind a hedge. Elias faced the attackers alone. Every move was careful, controlled. He did not strike to kill. He struck to disable. The conspirators were skilled, but they were not human. They underestimated his reflexes, his ability to read motion. Within moments, the fight was over. The attackers lay unconscious, their weapons scattered. Elias wiped sweat from his brow and immediately looked for Lysara. She emerged from hiding, trembling. "You saved me," she whispered. He gave her a small nod. "That is my duty." "Are you unharmed?" "Yes. Thanks to you," she said, her voice shaking. She had never felt such fear and relief at the same time. Back in the palace, the Emperor's chambers were filled with alarm. Guards had found the conspirators outside the walls, unconscious or fleeing. Lysara ran to her father. "Father, they tried to attack him," she said. I helped warn him."
"He fought them off."
Kael'tor's eyes narrowed. "Show me the man who dares attack a guest under my protection." Elias entered the room, calm as ever. "It is done, Your Majesty. No lives lost. The threat has been neutralized." The Emperor studied him closely. "And you acted alone?" "I did what was necessary," Elias said. "But I could not have succeeded without Princess Lysara's warning." Lysara blushed. She had never spoken like that in front of the Emperor, yet he did not scold her. Instead, he studied the human with something that almost resembled curiosity. Kael'tor spoke quietly. "You are no ordinary man, Elias Ward. Most beings would have fled, begged, or killed indiscriminately. You act differently," Elias nodded. "We humans learn to survive without relying on fear or cruelty. Strength is not power alone. It is control and judgment." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "I see that now. And yet the Council will not see it so clearly. You have enemies in this palace, human. You must tread carefully." Elias's eyes remained calm. "I expect no less." That evening, Lysara could not sleep. She sat on her balcony, staring at the moonlit city below. The duel, the warning, and the attack replayed in her mind. For the first time, she realized that humans were not creatures to fear because of strength. They were creatures to respect because of wisdom and endurance. A soft sound behind her made her turn. Elias stood there, quiet as a shadow. "You cannot rest," he said simply. "I cannot stop thinking about what happened," she admitted. "The conspirators. They would have killed you if I had not warned you." He walked closer, gaze steady. "Then you did the right thing. Courage is not measured by fear, but by action." She looked down, ashamed. I was afraid. I did not know if I could help." "You did," he said gently, "and that is what matters. Fear is only the first step. Action follows, and that defines you." Lysara felt her heart race. His words were not commands, they were truth. The human did not demand respect, but he commanded it anyway. For the first time, she did not feel fear alone. She felt something else, trust, admiration, and a spark of curiosity she could not explain. The next morning, Emperor Kael'tor called a council in the Grand Hall. The conspirators had been captured and quietly imprisoned. The nobles whispered in anger and shame. They had underestimated the human, and now they faced the Emperor's judgment. "You tried to strike down a guest under my protection," the Emperor said, voice cold but measured. "For that you are punished. And yet I wonder, why would you act against peace? What has blinded you to honor?" Lord Vakar spoke, bowing but with a hard glare. "Your Majesty, he is not to be trusted. The human. He grows too strong. He undermines our ways, our pride. One day he will take more than honor. He will take the empire itself." The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. "Then let him prove his strength and honor again. But not through violence against innocence." He turned to Elias, who stood silently. "You have shown control and mercy. Your actions speak louder than their whispers. Know that your deeds are now part of Vayrali history. Elias inclined his head. It is my honor, Your Majesty. I seek only peace. Lysara followed him out of the hall after the council ended. The city was bright under the twin suns now. Birds of light flew over the crystal towers and fountains sparkled in the plazas. You could have killed them, she said quietly. The conspirators. I could, Elias replied. But then they would have taught nothing. Fear is not the lesson we need to give. Control is. She nodded slowly, thinking about what he had said. Humans, she realized, were not merely fighters. They were teachers of truth, even when they were silent. You make it sound so simple, she said, a small smile on her face. He smiled faintly. Simple is different from easy. The universe does not yield to strength alone. It responds to those who act with clarity, discipline, and purpose. Her mind raced. If humans were like this, then the galaxy had indeed underestimated them. The fear she had felt when she first saw him was not just personal. It was instinct. A warning of a species that could change the balance of power across worlds. For the first time, Lysara did not only fear Elias, she respected him. And more than that, she wondered what the future might hold if humans and Vayrali could truly stand together. Above them, the twin moons began to set, leaving the sky a deep shade of blue. Somewhere far beyond Aurelian, hidden ships moved quietly among the stars. The threat of danger had not ended, it had only shifted. But for the first time, Lysara felt hope. Not hope for safety, but hope for understanding, and perhaps a hope for something greater. Between the human who had shaken her fear and the empire that had learned to respect him. The morning sun rose slowly over Aurelian, painting the silver towers with warm gold. The city was quiet now, but the events of the past days had left their mark. Fear had turned into respect, suspicion into careful observation, and in the hearts of many, the name Elias Ward carried weight. Emperor Kael'tor sat in his private chamber, studying reports from across the empire. The conspirators had been imprisoned, their schemes exposed, but the whispers in the court remained. Some nobles still doubted humanity. Some still feared what they did not understand. Lysara entered quietly. Her steps were soft, but her presence carried authority. Father, she said, the people are unsettled. They watch the humans with wary eyes. The emperor nodded. Yes, change always brings unease. But there is one human who has proven his honor. One human who has shown mercy, strength, and wisdom. Commander Elias, Lysara said softly. He is unlike anything we have known. I no longer fear him. She hesitated, unsure of her own feelings. The memory of the duel, the secret attack, and his calm presence filled her mind. For the first time, she saw not a stranger, but someone who could be a true ally. Speak freely, my daughter, Kael'tor said gently. I trust him, she said finally, and I believe the Empire can too if we choose to listen. That afternoon, a council was called. Nobles filled the grand hall, their faces pale with tension. Among them, Lord Vekar and his faction whispered, eyes sharp. But when Elias entered the chamber, silence fell. He did not bow excessively, nor did he try to charm them. He simply stood tall, calm, and composed. His dark uniform was plain, but his presence was powerful. The Emperor raised his hand. Let this council witness the man who defended honor without cruelty, who risked his life to show mercy, and who revealed the truth of humanity to us all. Elias inclined his head slightly. I am no hero, Your Majesty. I only act according to what is right. Peace is worth the risk, the nobles murmured. Some looked uneasy. Some looked intrigued. The truth of his words could not be ignored. Lord Vekar stepped forward, voice sharp. Your Majesty, the human may be clever, but he walks among us as a stranger. He could strike at any time. How can we trust a species that has been unknown to us? The Emperor's golden eyes pierced the noble. You speak as if trust is a choice. It is not. Trust is earned, and Commander Ward has earned it. Vekar's lips tightened, but he said nothing more. Lysara watched the exchange carefully. She could see the fear in some faces, but she could also see the beginning of understanding. Later, in private, the Emperor and Elias walked through the gardens. The twin suns reflected on the crystal pools, making the water glow like fire. You have changed many hearts today, Kael'tor said quietly. But I suspect there are still those who would act against you. Elias nodded. I am aware. But fear cannot stop truth from being spoken. Those who act out of suspicion will learn that strength is not just about power, but about honor. The Emperor paused, looking at the human carefully. You are different from any being I have ever known. Not only in strength, but in wisdom. Your presence forces us to see ourselves more clearly. Elias's gaze was calm. Perhaps that is the true test of any leader, Your Majesty. To face what they fear and still act with clarity. That evening, Lysera joined Elias in the palace courtyard. The city below glittered with light and distant ships moved silently among the stars. You have taught me much, she said softly. About courage, about mercy, and about strength. Elias looked at her, his dark eyes calm but piercing. You have taught yourself as well. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. She smiled faintly. I feared you at first. But now, I do not. I respect you. Respect is earned, he said, and you have given it freely. That is rare, even among your own people. Lysera's heart beat faster. She did not understand all she felt, but she knew one thing. This human had changed everything. Not just her own perception, but the Empire's view of humanity itself. Days later, the Emperor called a ceremony in the Grand Hall. Citizens gathered, nobles stood in line, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Today, Kael'tor began, we honor one who has shown the Vayrali Empire the truth of a species we once underestimated. One who came not to conquer, but to teach courage, mercy, and honor. He gestured to Elias. Commander Elias Ward of the Terran Union. Applause filled the hall. Some hesitant, some proud. Elias stepped forward. He bowed slightly, not in flattery, but in respect. You have welcomed me into your halls, he said simply. You have tested me, challenged me, and yet given me the chance to show what humanity can offer. We come not to rule, but to stand as equals, and we hope one day your people and mine will walk together among the stars as allies. The Emperor nodded solemnly. Your words will be remembered, and so will your actions. Outside, Lysera walked beside Elias. The city below sparkled, the fountains reflecting light like liquid stars. You leave tomorrow? She said softly. Yes, he replied. But I hope this is only the beginning. The stars are large and the universe is wide. Perhaps our paths will meet again. She looked at him. You have changed the Empire, Elias Ward. Not through force, not through fear, but through truth. That is something I will never forget. He smiled faintly. Neither will I, Princess Lysera. Either will I. For the first time she felt calm. Fear had given way to respect. Respect had given way to hope. The human who had shaken her so deeply had shown the Empire something they had almost forgotten. The value of courage, honor, and unyielding will. The next morning, the Terran fleet prepared to leave the orbit of Aurelian. Citizens and nobles gathered along the crystal balconies to watch. Elias boarded his ship with quiet dignity. The engines hummed, a gentle but steady sound that promised speed and strength. Lysera watched from the royal balcony, her hands resting lightly on the railing. Her father stood beside her. He has left a mark on this empire, Kael'tor said softly. Yes, Lysera replied, not just on the empire, but on me. The ship lifted into the sky, leaving a trail of light behind it. Citizens whispered among themselves, and even the skeptical nobles felt a change in their hearts. Humanity was no longer a distant, unknown race. It was a presence, a force of courage and honor that could not be ignored. Days passed, and the palace returned to routine. Yet everywhere the story of the human who had fought with mercy and wisdom spread. The tale became legend. Children spoke of Commander Elias Ward. Young warriors studied his tactics. Leaders debated his words. Humanity, once underestimated, had earned a name among the stars. Princess Lysera often walked alone in the gardens, thinking of him. She remembered his calm strength, his quiet courage, and the way he had changed her view of the universe. She realized that the galaxy was no longer the same, and that humans had left a legacy that would endure for generations. In her heart, she carried a spark of hope. A hope that one day humans and Vayrali could face the stars together, as equals, as allies, and perhaps as friends. And so the story ended, not with war, but with understanding. Not with fear, but with respect. And across the stars, the name humanity began to shine, not as a threat, but as a symbol of courage, wisdom, and unbreakable will. For even among the most ancient empires, the presence of one human had changed the course of history forever. The end.